Hey, welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 130. Oh boy, the big 130. I tell you, I'm having a good time. I'm having a good time today. I was at Kat's, and her mom got me like a family-sized bag of Doritos. So I'm peak gaming right now. I'm gaming with my fucking Dorito encrusted fingers. so gross. Last night I went to go see there's this thing that my grandfather and I do every it's like a yearly thing now, where we go to a performance of it's a jazz concert of A Charlie Brown Christmas. The soundtrack, the classic jazz soundtrack, it was written by something Vince Guaraldi, I think, who was like a Bay Area beatnik jazz composer. So there's like this whole California Bay Area pride thing, history thing. Like, it was composed here. And it's always a nice time. I mean, it's a great soundtrack. I just kind of sat in there and just sort of vegged out and enjoyed the music, and it's good music. I don't know. It's just nice to just sit and think too. I sat next to a little kid who fell asleep, so I guess he didn't understand the complexities of jazz music. But it was a good time, and one of the things that's interesting, one of the situations that naturally happen whenever I'm doing something with my grandfather is he tries to talk to me. This is on my mom's side, by the way. He tries to talk to me about things that I do, what I'm up to. And he approaches it from a very... He's an older guy, He's my grandfather. I think I mentioned before on this podcast, but he met Oppenheimer. Like he met him in college. They weren't not at the same time, but he was in college at Berkeley, and Oppenheimer came to visit. So that's the kind of level of age. He's 85. And he is he's in a technical field. He's a physicist. He has some knowledge of technology, right? He's not a total Luddite, but the world of online content creation, let's use that word, online video, is pretty foreign to him. He doesn't really get a lot of it. So you end up with these sorts of conversations where we were eating dinner, and he asked, are there any professional societies that you can join? And I just looked at him like I think I heard what you just said, but I don't know what those words mean. He goes, well, I'm a member of the American Geological Society. And so when I go on a trip to Antarctica, which I thought they were going to fucking die on that trip, dude, I thought it was over. I was really worried. It was either Antarctica or something else. He goes, when I go on a trip, it was sponsored. It was like a research trip by the American Geological Society. And I'm like, he's like, a professional society that people in your field can, organize under. And I was like a union? like a union for YouTubers? It's like, I could not fucking wrap my head around what he was talking about. And I couldn't until today when I was telling my dad about it. And my dad, who was able to serve as a bridge between these two worlds and these two age demographics as a Gen Xer, the X standing for the Japanese way where they say cross, a Gen Crosser, he's the cross bridge. He was like, well, I mean, in the horse and buggy mindset, you would join, the status symbol of your influence is that you're part of a society in like an intellectual field or maybe a creative field. You're part of a society based around that thing. That doesn't really like exist anymore. Well, they do exist, but they're for much older disciplines, you know. There is no society, American YouTuber society. You know, stuff like that. We don't even have unions, dude. And it was just, it's nothing against him. It's just a cultural disconnect. Like, I was so confused. I felt like such a zoomer. I had no idea what he was trying to say. Like what he was even suggesting, like theoretically that could exist, a society of whatever. I was very funny, very, very weird. I know I talk a lot. I've talked more. Whenever it comes, I feel like it's come up more recently now, just because it's like the holidays, so I'm around, just due to gatherings and things like that, around people who are much older than me, 20 to 30 years older than me. And so, you know, it's just coming up more often, more frequently about, like, how do I describe what I do, and, like, people who don't quite understand the landscape of this industry. I say industry very lightly, because it's like a... What's a good metaphor? Excuse me. It's kind of like a field, like an oil field on fire. That's how I would describe this online video influencer bullshit. And so I'm sorry if this is horribly unrelatable to people who listen to this podcast, like the 25 of you who regularly listen to this podcast who do, like, I don't know, like go to college or some shit. You could explain to your grandparents, but yeah, and it's just one of those things you got to just kind of bite the bullet. I wish I had a better cover story. You know, I wish I had a better cover story for what I do, but I just have to say, like, I talk about video games on the internet, and I make like $50 a month, and I'm a freeloading loser. Anyway, hey, speaking of actually, no, not speaking of being... I didn't have a good segue. There was no questions, or there was no comments. There were 0 comments on the last episode. And so we're just going to jump straight into what we've been doing. I played more Elfelt. In Strive. Wow, she is, like, really fun. She is very fun. And really straightforward. I don't remember exactly how much of her I had played the last time that I talked about her. I think I'd had like 1 or 2 sessions maybe with the character. But yeah, I took her online, and she is a real blast to play. Very stupid character, and very easy, like really easy to understand and pick up and start doing like basic stuff with. But God, it is really fun and intuitive feeling. That's how I would describe her. Like, a lot of things that you want to make work on her. The way things combo together, the way you can catch people with certain moves while they're in the juggle state. Like, it feels really good, and it's to the level where you can kind of like half mash. You can get very intentional, with it, I think she has a good, like, skill floor to ceiling. Because you can get very intentional with it and do some really crazy, big, long, corner-to-corner combos that do a ton of damage and wall break and all this shit. And to an extent, you can also kind of just mash and get, not quite as much reward, but a decent level of reward for just mashing. And that with her release has come a wave of complaints about her. And I get it. So first of all, it's a new character. People are not used to playing against her. It's not like Johnny, where Johnny always, he's different. He's kind of streamlined in Strive. He's been slightly compressed. But, a lot of his moveset resembles previous games. there's like a general way, like a lot of Johnny's strengths and weaknesses are pretty similar between games, right? I guess in this game he doesn't have like the unblockable setups and all that shit from Exerd, but Elphelt is a different animal, where she is a almost completely like I like her whole moveset is different. She does a lot of similar-ish things, but in a different way. So Elphelt straight up is a scrub killer character. That's what I call it. She's a scrub killer. And I don't think that's a bad thing. In fact, I think that that's a very good thing. I think every competitive game needs some amount of scrub killers in it. Things that, when I say, what I mean by that is a scrub killer to me is a character or a strategy or an item or a whatever that is really good at exploiting a very specific weakness of newer players to the game. So the reason, so Elphelt has this it's mostly localized around her Rekka right now. That's the scrub killy aspect of her. There is a legitimately fucked up nasty shit with her, which is the grenade, and grenade mix-ups are actually crazy and very fun to do. But like that's the real dirt with Elphelt is the grenade mix-ups, and you can get a lot off of grenade mix. Her Rekka is very different. So what I've realized is that Elphelt's Rekka, it's actually not that dangerous. Like, if she lands it, if she successfully mixes you up or combos into it, she doesn't really get that much off of it, especially if she's not either already got like a juggle going, so she can kind of like, she can do some stuff where she like combos into like close slash off of it and stuff like that to get some more extensions, or, you know, obviously she can Roman cancel to use it as like a starter for anything. Like, obviously, you know, you can say that of every single character in the game, because that's how that mechanic works. It's more so that, like, if you get hit with that, you usually get, she'll usually probably end in, like, shotgun ender, and that, like, puts you a decent length away from her, at least mid-screen. In the corner, she's a little closer, naturally. But it doesn't do that much damage. She can't combo off of it just on its own. Like, if she's just got you, if she just mixes you up in a block string, and you know what's she gonna get? Like 2 hits. She's gonna hit you with like the overhead or the low, and then shotgun ender or something like that. And she has to kind of run back in, and you gotta, you know, play the wake up game again. And it's really not a big deal to get hit by it. The problem, it becomes a lot more dangerous in the corner because there's not nearly as much pushback. But yeah, it's like, it's not that dangerous of a move. Like, it's good in its own sense, but it's not that dangerous. The reason it's a scrub killer is because it exploits players who don't understand how to break down how pressure generally works and offense generally works in Strive. So what I mean by that is that the things that Elphelt, specifically her Rekka, is good at are things that other characters in the game are good at in a broader sense, but with Elphelt, it's very localized to her Rekka, right? That move and that sequence where she can go high or low and all that, that is like a microcosm of how offense works in Strive. Strive is not a very mix-up oriented game because that's for a couple of reasons. I would say the main one is the universal Gatling system. So in previous games, characters had character specific. There were universal Gatlings, ways that patterns of how one normal strings into another. But characters also had a lot of unique specific ones where that they could use to mix up their timing or mix up going high or low. A lot of characters have built-in overheads into their kit, stuff like that, command grabs, things like that. I got my head working. Sorry, I'm still in like boot up mode. Strive is very different because when they did away with character-specific gattlings, and it's all universal. So when someone's pressuring you in Strive, when someone's got you in a block string, you know what this block string's gonna be. Like, you know every move that's gonna be coming out in the sequence because it's the system. It's basically how it works with a very little variation. The challenge, the way that it works, is that you can... When people say stagger pressure in Strive, it's about the way that you mix up the timing, because a lot of pressure in Strive can just keep going. It can just keep going. Even strike throw characters can go for a really long time. But there are openings, there are these gaps in the pressure that you can escape or you can interrupt. And being able to capitalize on that is how you escape and start turning a situation around. Now, on the attacker's end, they can combat this by changing the timing of their attacks, delaying things, doing things faster, frame trapping and stuff like that, because there's such a wide cancel window for where things can come out, when things can come out. And so it's a game, I've heard it described, it's less a game of what they're going to do and more when they're going to do it, which a lot of people can find very frustrating. I've been frustrated with that in the past because sometimes they can feel almost arbitrary. Like the frame data, it's not an easy game to crack just based off of frame data, for instance, because I remember trying to lab against Kai's Fudra arc, his overhead, well, it's not an overhead, but it's like his flip kick. And the frame data on that is so variable depending on whether you're standing or crouching because of how many active frames it has and how deep it can hit. It is like legitimately like, okay, you kind of have to guess. You kind of have to guess if you want to interrupt it, or he's just going to be able to reset his pressure again. And Elfelt's Rekka is a very localized version of that. And you might say, oh, well, but isn't it about going high and low and all that? She's more of like a high-low mixed character instead of a timing frame trap kind of character. Sort of, yeah. There is that element where you can mix up high and low, and definitely you can get totally whacked by that. But it's technically not a true 50-50. And the reason for that is a little deceptive. Again, if you look at the frame data, the high and the low, it says they come out on the same frame, or they're active on the same frame, but in reality, the initial hitbox of the overhead is so high that if you're crouching, it'll just whiff on you, meaning that they actually hit on like the same frame. Or sorry, the overhead actually hits a little bit later than the low option, meaning that you can actually like practice fuzzy guarding it. So you can block for however many frames, and then you can crouch block for however many frames, and then stand block after that period of time. And it's well, I'll get into that in a second. And you can beat it with just timing. You can guarantee that you could, well, get close to guaranteeing that you can block it no matter which one she does. Of course, she can delay it, but that's hey, see where we are? She can delay it. She can delay which one she does, or when she does it, meaning that... stagger pressure. We're back to the same idea. Where Elfelt's mix gets really dangerous because it's broken up into these three. The way the Rekka works is that you can only do three things. It's like three segments, three pieces. The first one is always like the starter, which just hits mid. Then you can go overhead or low. And then you can go into the third segment, which can either be another overhead/low or the shotgun ender. However, at any point after the first or second segment, she can go back into the starter and basically start the chain up again. That doesn't combo, it's not a true block string, and every single character in the game, if she tries to reset it, the Rekka, every single character in the game can just jab it out or like 6p it or something. Everyone can interrupt it. So if you know it's coming, or if you read it, or just, guess, you can just completely blow her up for trying to reset her pressure. It doesn't, because it doesn't combo. However, there is also a gap going from the starter to the overhead. But that gap is not interruptible. It's a frame trap gap. Meaning that if the actual, like, the mix is in the timing, because she basically has to end with Shotgun Ender if she wants to stay safe. She can go for like 2 mixes in a row, but it's extremely unsafe because she's like minus 13 or something, and it's point blank, so she's gonna get fucked up no matter what. If you can understand how the difference between doing the reset and doing the overhead, and how she structures her pressure, that's like the real, like, that's the most complicated that it gets. You can actually form a game plan. There is still a guessing game that's involved in the mix. But it's, instead of being between an overhead and a low, is the move going to come out at a timing that I can interrupt, or a timing that I can't interrupt, and I'm going to get counter hit and blown the fuck up for trying to do. It's not really, like, the eventual mind game is not high-low, it's timing based. And with Elfelt, that's separated between either doing the starter again or the overhead, as opposed to other characters who it's just spread across there. Like, okay, Giovanna runs up and does close slash. Is she gonna hit it again? Is she gonna hit far? Is she gonna, like, do it fast enough that she hits far slash? Is she gonna do heavy slash? Is she gonna do 2S? There's like all of these different options that she has that it's a little dizzying if you throw that problem at a new player. With Elfelt, it's these 2 moves, and it's locked into this specific sequence. She's gonna run up, and there's gonna be 2 things that she can do. And if you can understand that, and you can form a game plan around that, that inherently teaches you the skills to start approaching the way that most other characters in the game structure their offense. And that's why I say that Scrubkillers are good for a game. The other example I would think of is Teemo from League of Legends, another game that I have too much experience in. Teemo is a character who is, like, infamously annoying to play against, that everyone fucking hates. But at the same time, he's been played, I think, a total of 1 time ever in competitive play. And that 1 time was like a joke because it was a tournament where I think, like, they were already... The game itself was basically just a formality, and they were already out of the tournament no matter what. So they just said fuck it, and one guy picked Teemo as a joke. Teemo's entire kit is based around literally the one thing he has, which is the blind that turns off your auto attacks. It makes them all miss for a few seconds, or depending on the level. That is Teemo's main thing. He counters, supposedly, melee champions. So why isn't he picked in competitive play? Well, it's because he offers basically nothing besides this one gimmick. His kit is largely localized around shutting enemies down if they don't know what else to do against it. And what you do against it is you just bait it out and you just wait. Some characters have spell shields that they can absorb it and just nullify it. You can wait until he tries to kill a minion with it and gets greedy. You know, you can walk up, pretend to engage, bait him to use the blind on you, and now it's on cooldown, and you can just run up and actually hit him, or force him to back off, because if you actually want start fighting for space in lane, because now that it's on cooldown, he really has no way to contest you. So if you want to like assert yourself, he can't do anything against you. That's like it's actually, he's not a good character. Like he has an extremely linear design, but it's one that exploits a weakness of newer players. They don't know how to play around a character's strengths. They don't know how to bait things out from their opponent. They don't understand how you jostle for control over the lane. They don't understand, getting something on a cooldown and taking that option off of the table. All they see is every time I try to fight Teemo, he blinds me, and then they just stand there trying to hit him uselessly, and then they take like half their health in poison damage, in very slow poison damage over time. If you can learn how to fight Teemo, you can then apply that skill to like every other character in every other matchup in the game. I baited this out. Now they're weak, and they're in a bad position if I engage. So they're going to be scared, and they're going to be forced to play more passively. I can fight for space, that kind of a thing. Those characters, even if they're not good, they're very valuable to the experience, to the overall, like, they are characters who teach you how to play the game. And also, by that same token, if you are a Teemo player, understanding the weaknesses of your own character can also in some way give you that lesson. Maybe less so than actually having to formulate a plan against it. But yeah, that's why I think characters like Elfelt are very, like, that particular aspect of them is very valuable. So that's cool. Funny little story. I went and I played some more Killer Instinct, and I was playing. Okay, so that game has a couple little antiquated things that, I can deal with it. One of them is that you don't just pick your character and then start queuing up. You queue up, you get into a match, and then you go to character select in between every match, which I didn't realize how slow that feels. But that means that I have to pick my character again every single match. And I was playing Shin Hisako. Now, Shin Hisako on the character select screen is in the dead center middle on the bottom row. Dead center middle top, the very top, actually above the top row, sitting on top of it, is the random select. So what happened is that I scrolled over to the center of the character select screen, and I meant to tap up twice to make it roll over back to the bottom to Shin Hisako. And I ended up hitting random, and I got Shadow Jago on accident. And I was like, oh god, oh no, what the fuck? Okay, you know what, I'll just mash buttons, Let's just get this over with. And then I won. And I won by like a landslide. I didn't know what he did. I figured, he's like the evil Ryu type character. He's Shadow Jago, He's the evil Jago or whatever. So like you kind of have an idea in your head based off of how other fighting games kind of handle that sort of archetype of what he's kind of gonna be like. But I didn't know any of his moves. I'm like, he probably has a fireball and like an uppercut or something. And I was just hitting random buttons. Just random buttons and teleporting and sliding all over the place. And I destroyed this guy that I got matched up with online. I had no clue what I was doing. And it was kind of hilarious. I'm going to be real. It was pretty funny. And I was like, should I try that again? And I started playing Shadow Jago, and oh wow, this character feels like really easy. This kid, you just kind of run forward. Well, he doesn't run. He has this giant teleport dash. Oh, like Slayer. And then you all these different like teleport cross-up mixes and like slide and all that. And you just hit buttons. You just hit buttons, dude. Like, it's so easy. His combo starters are a little weird, but or his openers specifically, but it I don't know, man. I guess that's the character now. Shadow Jago. That's probably really funny to anyone who's played KI for a longer time. I'm assuming that's really funny. And then I guess to wrap up this little fighting game triage of topics, found out that apparently Granblue Fantasy Versus Rising, which just came out, the updated revision of Granblue Fantasy Versus, has a free version. I did not know that. They took, speaking of KI, they took a sort of KI-inspired model where there is a free version that gives you access to all the modes, I'm pretty sure. It gives you access to basically every mode. You got training mode, arcade mode, I think story mode, and online, and the online lobbies with that weird Fall Guys thing that I didn't try out. With a rotating cast of 4 characters. Well, it's not exactly 4. I think it's actually Gran, the main character, the Ryu. He is always available, and then there's like 3 other characters who rotate around him. So you get 4 to pick from every week. 3 of them rotating, and I thought, yeah, screw it. It's free. Might as well check it out. So I jumped in. I did a little bit. I didn't go online. I did some training mode with the 4 characters that are available right now. I did an arcade mode with one of them who I thought seemed kind of cool. I think the new character, I believe he is. His name is Siegfried. And I don't know if it's really for me. It feels a little slow. Like, it felt kind of sluggish. Just the way everything kind of felt. It could just be there's an adjustment period. I played for about an hour, so nothing very deep. It's definitely doing like a weird kind of hybrid between Hyper Anime Fighter and Street Fighter, where it's got these kinds of like, chaining moves together, like canceling them, like canceling normals and all that. But there's the longer combo structure and things like that. But there's also it feels a little, is lethargic the right word? It's very grounded feeling. Jumps are kind of slow. Anti-airs tend to be pretty shallow from what I can tell, or not shallow, like not very big horizontally. There's no air dashing. I believe there's running or at least like a little forward hopping. So there's that. And I don't know how much, if I really gelled with the way that it felt. There's also the fact that the roster is limited to 4, so I was only able to try out a couple characters. And I'm not really a Shoto player, I say right after I talk about massacring people with Shadow Jago. But if you've ever been interested about the game, if you've ever been curious, absolutely go check it out. Again, it's free. No harm, no foul, It has all new rollback netcode, and it's modern ArcSys rollback, so it's actually, apparently, it should be pretty good. You get the big old lobbies. You get the pretty much, from what I can tell, pretty much every feature except just the full roster. And if you've ever been curious about it, check it out. I knew a guy, my main exposure to Granblue was that I went to high school with this guy who was really into the mobile game. And I thought it was funny when Granblue was, this was like in 2019, and Granblue was it hadn't released yet. I believe it was, did it release 2019 or 2020? One of those two. And he was telling me about how he was really kind of interested in it. He wasn't a fighting game guy, but he was interested in it. And there was two parts of me that were like, oh man, if you're a Granblue fan, you're probably gonna really dig the characters and stuff. And there's another part of me that's like, oh, but it's delay based. Oh, but no rollback. And now that that doubt, that negative is gone. So that's nice. It's like it's freed from the delay-based prison. You know what else would be great to free from the delay-based prison? JoJo All-Star Battle R. Dude, I was watching tournament footage of that game from like CEO or CEO Taku specifically and Evo, and man, that game looks really fun. And I love JoJo, right? And it's got so many characters that I like from it. Like it's like an amazing roster. It's a great roster. There's like there's a couple characters that I think should have been in there. Namely Part 8 characters. They got the main villain. They got the main villain from Part 8, which is cool. That would have been the bare minimum that I would have wanted to at least complete the whole every JoJo and every main villain thing that it had going on. I feel like it's kind of necessary for a big crossover game like that. So they got him in at the end. Excuse me. But I mean, there's like a couple, like I think Rai would have been awesome to have from Part 8. I think, Jobin would have been sick. He's like my favorite character from Part 8. Damo, the vitamin C guy, would have been a really cool fighting game character, I think. Like, yeah, I can think of like a cool set play style for him with the hand, placing the hands on the floor and all that. I think it would have been a lot. I would have preferred if like the final season pass of ASBR was entirely Part 8 focused, but instead they were like, yeah, Fungami. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I like Fungami. The Highway Star arc is fun. Who was the other character from? Oh, fucking alternate Diego. Fuck that character. Or was he the final character of the first season? I don't remember. Oh no, it was Abakio. Abakio is also pretty good. Abakio is a good choice. Fucking, why would you put alternate world Diego? I hate that fucking character. Yeah, but other than that, like, it's got characters that I think didn't need to be there. Like, did Shigechi have to be in the game? Did Prosciutto and Pesce really have to be there? Giacchio was cool to add in. And I mean, like, they're cool, I get it. I think gameplay-wise, they're neat. Keicho, really? Like, I mean, then you see him gameplay, and you're like, okay, I mean, I get it. It's more like, it feels like influenced more by a gameplay concept than a character that I think would have been cool to have in there. I would have, much preferred, someone like Hot Pants from Part 7 getting put in, or Blackmore. Characters I think are way cooler than fucking alternate Diego. But really, it does have a great. I feel like I have to keep saying this because I just keep bitching about this character didn't get in. It's as close as you could get to a perfect roster. It really is. Like, I mean, you get Speedwagon in there. That's all. You get all the Pillarmen. You get cool little like niche picks, like I have to look at like Rohan's in there, and they came up with a cool moveset for Rohan, who is not really much of a fighter, but he has this really neat mechanic around like locking you out of using your moves. Oh wow, it's a very Rohan thing to do. Wow. Trish is in there. I love Trish. I was seeing some like Trish gameplay, and I was like, oh man, I love Trish. There's so much little like attention to detail, like these little loving little touches, like the fucking Whole Horse has like a misogyny buff where he does more damage against women, but he builds less meter. So I was watching this fucking tournament, and whole horse starts blowing up this other character, and the commentator's like, "Oh, the misogyny buff, I forgot." And it's like, that's so fucking funny. There's like these cool little interactions that are character specific, and it's not just like, oh, dialogue voice lines. There's plenty of that in there, like, you know, intro and outro dialogues. No, there's like actual gameplay differences with, like, there'll be a unique animation for this thing. Like when Iggy uses his like level 2 super against Pet Shop, he gets a unique animation where he does the thing from their fight where he bites his beak and all that shit. It's, oh shit, that's the reference. All these, like, there's alternate versions of every single stage that has them at night, because if you're playing a vampire character, they can't be out in the day, so that you have to play on the night version of the stage. Like, all these really funny little touches that make it feel like a good JoJo game, first and foremost, right? Like, it is a fan servicey ass game, but then just judging from the gameplay, it looks silly as fuck. Like, there is some goofy shit, but for JoJo, I wouldn't have it any other way, baby. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I really want to play it, but it's on shitty fucking delay-based netcode. And it's like, oh, you have this incredible roster, all these really cool characters with these cool movesets. It captures the aesthetic of the manga and all the Araki's whole art style, you know, which changes so much over the course of 30 years. It captures it all so well, and like, it never feels weird to put, you know, part 1 Jonathan next to like part 8 Josuke and stuff like that, and it all works really well together. It has cool music, these little like cool neat little mechanics. There's like a new assist feature that's like KOF Strikers kind of thing. But it's just locked in this game with like that it's just unplayable online, and it's such a shame. It's such a shame, because like, man, it would be really cool to have someone to play that with in person, I guess. Yeah. That's my. It would be so great if you could actually do, maybe like over Parsec or something, some sort of solution or mod, like rollback mod. I doubt it'll ever exist, but it would be really cool. It finally runs at, 60 frames per second. It fixed a lot of the like little shitty things about the original release like that. Like, the original ran at fucking 30 frames? Really? For a fighting game? Please? What? Yeah, that's just, I don't know. That's my, please. And it's never going to get like an official rollback implementation, because it's CyberConnect 2, and they don't have anyone who knows how to do that, and it's so expensive. It's so expensive to do and so time consuming, and it really has to be for a game that a company is putting a lot of their weight behind. Like, Dragon Ball FighterZ can get a rollback patch after it's basically content complete, because that's a big game for ArcSys and Bamco. They can't do it for Tekken 8, though. It can happen. It can happen for Guilty Gear Xrd, because that's another like classic Guilty Gear game, and also they outsourced the production of the rollback to fans. And I doubt anything like that is going to happen with a dev like CC2. Which is unfortunate. I might get it just to like mess around and all that, and just check it out. And hey, maybe if I go to something in person and there happens to be an ASBR set up, then All-Star Batman and Robin, JoJo All-Star Batman and Robin, I'll be well prepared. I want to talk about a bit of a bummer news story. One that I'm sad to say confirmed my fears, my apprehensions. which is just kind of to talk about the ridiculous amount of layoffs happening under Embracer Group at all of the studios that they own. Well, not all of them, but a lot. I'm going to pull up there's an article. Oops. From IGN from a month ago. They laid off 900 staff. Oh, here's a link from a gamesindustry.biz. I love how it's a .biz URL. 904 people were laid off between July 1st and September 30th. That's insane across all of the studios they own. That's crazy. I remember just a couple months ago talking about Embracer buying up all of these companies and all these studios and all these IPs. And I think I said, it's not great for things to be so consolidated. But at the moment, they don't seem to be doing anything that bad. So I'm going to, we'll just sit and watch. And, don't get your hopes up kind of thing. This is why consolidation and centralization are bad things. Because sometimes you buy up 50 different studios and you set a bunch of projects into development before you've actually secured the funding to support all of that stuff. And then you're in talks with a Saudi Arabian-backed group to get the funding for that. And the deal falls through. And now you're completely fucked and you put yourself in this situation. This is a result of two factors. Number one is just normal market economic behavior. The other factor is very poor decision making in the face of normal market and economic behaviors. I say normal, but normal more so as in expected. You could have seen this coming. It's not hard to find takes online about the pandemic making the economy go really screwy, and also things like interest rates going down dramatically to uncharacteristic levels. And then no one ever stops to ask, hey, do you think that when the pandemic kind of chills out in a couple years, maybe 4 or 5 years, that the market could normalize to around the state it was in pre-pandemic? And I guess a lot of very rich and powerful people did not think about that, and so they massively expanded, and then oops, the market's contracting again. And then who suffers for it? The workers, of course. Why would the owner suffer for mistakes that they made? Isn't it awesome that you can work somewhere and you can do everything that you're asked, and then you make a major fuck up and you get fired? Meanwhile, the CEO can do whatever he wants. Nothing that he's necessarily asked to do. Whatever he wants. Make whatever decisions he thinks are good. And when he massively fucks up, you still get fired. He doesn't lose his job or anything. Why would he get fired? You're gonna pay for it. And regular people eat the cost of poor decision making from people who own shit. A tale as old as time. That's why things like consolidation are bad, because you end up in these very fragile situations where something goes wrong and now the ripple effects are huge. And when, I talk about how I've talked before about how I think it would be difficult to prove that the games industry has any kind of monopoly going on. This is actually kind of an example of what it would look like if I was wrong, because I'm right. But if I was wrong, and the industry was as centralized as something like Embracer, imagine if there was a true monopoly, something like this Embracer thing would have happened a while ago, and it would have been significantly more catastrophic for the industry as a whole. See, this is localized to just the studios that are underneath them. There is plenty of other developers and entities that are not connected to this who are unaffected, who may even be scooping up those people who got laid off, and I hope they do. I hope the people who got laid off are able to find work quickly, because god damn it, it's 2 weeks before Christmas. No, it's less than that. Jesus. It's almost exactly a week as I record this. When this goes out, it will be a week to Christmas. Merry Christmas. You're fired. Yeah. The you know what's funny? I don't think of myself as a socialist. But in recent years, I've had a lot of I guess softening to a lot of socialist ideas. Not to the point where not to the point where I would call myself one. And it's funny because like you talk to people, and you kind of explain basic just premises that are involved in socialism, and they're kind of like, wait, yeah, hang on, like, hey, wait, hang on a second. You know, if you're like the employee of a company, you know, think about the entities in this arrangement. You have the owners, the employees underneath them, and you have the customers. Well, why does the company, why does it exist? Why is it allowed? How does this work? Well, the customers bestow the value to a company by, like, I don't know if bestow is the right term, but customers pay for products and services that the company produces. Those services and products are produced by the employees, and it's managed by the owners to different degrees, depending on, I guess, how it's laid out. Now, like a CEO does work. Managers, they do work. But if you think about it, the vast majority of the value of the company only happens because of the employee. It's because of the worker. And you can say, like, well, certain jobs are very low skill. It's like, yeah, but someone's doing it. Like, if there was no one to do it, like, it's not the fact that the job is low skill, it's the fact that it exists at all. Right? It wouldn't exist without them. Being low skill doesn't mean that it's nothing. It's still there. So, is it reasonable to ask that maybe the section of the company that is employees, that is workers, should maybe have a little bit more influence over how the value of the company is distributed, or how, funds are managed, how certain decisions are made? I feel you explain that to a lot of people. They're like, wait, yeah, I do work. Like, I think about my place here on YouTube. And YouTube as a platform does provide, they provide a platform, and that's not for nothing, right? You wouldn't be here without the platform. But also, the only reason the customers are here on the platform is because of creators. People like me, I am a part of that pie. I represent a group, the group that is that pie, that part of the pie. And, like, all of the value of the actual company is produced by YouTubers. That's the only reason anyone comes to the site, is because there's content that is made essentially for free for a while. For a long time, it's for free until you start making money off of it. And yet, I have zero say. Sometimes they send out these little surveys that I don't think do anything. I have really no say over the direction that the company goes in, or the directions that the platform goes in. You know, there was no vote on those horrible changes to ads. All I've heard is that the ad experience in the last month or two has gotten significantly worse for a lot of people who don't use ad blockers. You know, I don't have an influence over that. I don't think anyone would have voted for that, right? To take away power from actual creators and give it to YouTube, who are obviously just going to pump as many ads as they can into videos. Like, no, it's ridiculous and it's frustrating. But I don't like talking about economics and politics on my podcast. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. Yeah. So I'm going to cut myself off before I go on a rant about political nihilism. And we're going to talk about Chicken Run. So, Kat really wanted to watch Chicken Run, the 2000... Was it 2000 or 1999? Aardman animated feature about the chickens who are trying to get on the run. She really wanted to watch it because it's been a while and she loved the movie as a kid and she just wanted to see it again. And apparently there's a sequel. I didn't know that. There's a sequel on Netflix or something. I forget. It's on streaming. That I had not heard of. Chicken Run 2. Dawn of the Nugget. And I guess as a little refresher, because I owned Chicken Run on like VHS, I believe, as a kid. So I've seen it before. I've seen it a couple times, and I always liked it. I remember liking it. But I haven't seen it in a very long time. So I guess before we watched the sequel, we wanted to refresh our memories on what, I don't know, just the original movie. So Chicken Run was apparently created before the Academy Award category for Best Picture was a thing. Chicken Run. And Kat said, can I find a quote about this? That they wanted to, I think they were aiming for like an Oscar nomination. Let's see. Yeah, I can't quite find anything. But Kat mentioned that they basically created this film because they had never made this was their first feature film. They'd only made the Wallace and Gromit shorts up to this point, and the Shaun the Sheep shorts. This was their first feature film, and they wanted to go for an Oscar. And did it get anything? Academy Awards. Did it get anything? Oh my god, I don't think it was nominated for anything. What the fuck? Yeah, that's funny. Well, it's not funny. It's depressing. Not at the Academy Awards. It got a bunch of stuff from, the British Academy Film Awards and the Golden Globes in musical or comedy. That is an interesting category. It won the Satellite Award for Best Motion Picture. Anyway, so she was really hyped about this, and we watched it, and Chicken Run is fine. It's pretty good. I don't think it's like an incredible movie. I think she was definitely hyping it up based a little bit on nostalgia. Because she was I could tell she was like a little, not disappointed, but a little like, oh, well, it wasn't quite as good as I remembered it being. For context, we had to, she pulled out her DVD copy and we had to stop watching it because the disc was so fucked up and scratched from being played so many times over the years that at a certain point it became unwatchable because of the skipping. And we just had to pirate it. It was the only way we could finish the movie. Chicken Run is a pretty decent animated kids movie, family movie, about a chicken coop or a chicken farm where the chickens are led by a hen named Ginger, and their whole thing is they're trying to escape. It's in sort of a similar vein as Shaun the Sheep, of like barnyard antics, that kind of a vibe. Of course, in the British countryside, because where else? And things all their attempts to escape are unsuccessful. Escape from the farmer and his wife, who is really like, she's the villain. I was kind of pleasantly surprised at how diabolical she is. You don't see a lot of... It's a very female movie. Obviously, it's chickens. Most of the characters are female. And the what is her name? Mrs. Tweedy, I think, is like evil. She is a she is a deranged woman. Which I thought was fun. She hates those fucking chickens, dude. And then things change when an American rooster from the circus flies into the coop and breaks his wing, and promises they basically get into this arrangement where he's gonna teach them how to fly in exchange for them like protecting him while his wing heals. But he doesn't know how to fly, so he's kind of making it up, and oh my god, then he's the lie. You lied to us. Sorry, I guess it's British. You lied to us. That's what they would say. And then it's a good movie. It basically goes where you expect it to. And I can't say I'm terribly surprised that it wasn't nominated for anything. I'm sure if the best animated picture category existed at that time, it probably could have gotten a nomination. I think I think Shrek won? No! Yeah, no, it the category was created the year after Chicken Run, and then Shrek won the next year. Okay, that's what it was. That was the timeline. So we watched Chicken Run 2, which is a movie that came out just now. About 23 years later. And you're like, Jesus Christ, 23 years later? And you know what? I think it's better than the original. I genuinely think the sequel, it's one of the rare times where the sequel, I think, is better than the original movie. I think it's just way more interesting. There's nothing really wrong with the first Chicken Run, but the second movie does a lot more with the characters. Essentially, it's after they've already escaped. They're on their little island, their little paradise island, and Maggie... Sorry, why do I think her name is Maggie? Am I confusing it with another, like, animal film? Am I confusing that with Home on the Range? With the character... Wasn't one of the cows named Maggie or something? Ginger and... Oh, God, what's his name? The rooster. Is it Rocky? That's what it was. I knew it was with an R. They're living on this island with all the other chickens. They got these houses and stuff, and everything's awesome. They have they have a daughter named Molly, and Molly's this adventurous, kind of naive girl, and she is like, oh, I wanna go across the pond to it's just this tiny little island in the middle of a pond or a little lake. And I want to see what's over there on the, I guess, the mainland. Would it be the mainland? What would that be called? I don't know. Outside of the lake. Past the shore. Because there's this truck that she sees that drives past it's a picture of a chicken in a bucket. And it's doing a thumbs up. And she's like, I want to see what that is. And Ginger and Rocky, they want to leave the past behind. They want to start fresh. They don't want to deal with human beings. And so they just don't want to tell her about it. And this ends up biting them in the ass because Molly, of course, ends up escaping in the middle of the night and going and getting fucking kidnapped and taken to a chicken farm. More like a slaughterhouse. Factory kind of thing. And just right off the bat, I really like taking these characters and putting them in such a different position. In the original, it's like, okay, you know, Ginger, she's kind of like this leader character. Rocky is this, you know, the kid, they're you kind of figured, you know, kind of what they're going to be like. They're not bad. They're just very archetypal. Rocky is this smooth talking American rooster who is kind of tries to talk his way out of telling the truth, maybe sometimes for his own benefit, but always got a heart of gold, you know. And Ginger is the kind of very determined, plucky leader. I think it's really interesting to take those characters and put them in the position of being parents. That's not something that you see very often, where it's a family movie, but the parents are taking these characters and putting them into that role, and not just making them like accessories to the plot. Is interesting because Molly is also she's not like an annoying kid character. She's naive, right? But it's also not really her fault. It's kind of her parents' fault. And just seeing the way that they deal with the challenges of raising a kid and the decisions that they make, and how at one point they think it's the right thing to do, and then it ends up being maybe maybe that was the wrong thing to do, and reflecting on that and maybe changing their mind and being open to change is neat. Molly going from this very naive, adventurous, brave girl to kind of being put in way over her head and being in this very scary, kind of honestly pretty nightmarish situation. She gets to this factory, and the idea is that it's like the Lotus Eaters from the Odyssey, where they have the idea behind it was that, oh well, when chickens get ground up, they tense their muscles, which makes the meat tighter and it makes it taste worse. But if chickens are happy, then they'll be relaxed and it makes the meat taste better. I don't know if that's true, but that's the premise, right? So they put these fucking mind control, these bimbo mind break collars on the chickens that make them like just stupidly placated and happy, and essentially frame the chopper, like the fucking the grinder machine, as like going to heaven. It's like being selected to go to heaven. Like, it's kind of fucked up. I don't know what happens to the collar after they go through the machine. Like, does little bits of it end up in the thing? I don't know. It doesn't really matter that much. Like, it's kind of fucked up and weird, and it's like very clearly like a cult thing. That's what it gives off vibes of. There's this whole like break-in sequence where the characters from the first movie, they gotta break in to this like cartoonishly defended military stronghold. Like, the guards they have guards, they look like Imperial officers from Star Wars. They have to do this whole break-in thing where they're using these little household items and stuff like that, which was a thing that was in the original film, where, you know, they're just scrounging together little scraps of things that they can get, like, you know, a pair of suspenders or a coat hanger or something like that. But it's really cranked up in this film in a way that I find really charming, and kind of leans into that aspect of them being like these small animals who have to make do with these makeshift tools that they kind of scavenge from human society. And it's like fun, like seeing all the different little bits and knickknacks that they use to like get over like get under a fence, like they get this like tire and then they pump the tire up and it lifts the fence up and makes like a little gate for them and stuff like that. It's fun. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. Like it's a fairly long. How long is that? It's quite a bit longer than the original. 98 minutes. Yeah. And there's just more kind of going on. I can't say that I was, super shocked at where things were. I mean, it took a couple turns that I wasn't expecting entirely. I figured that, she's going to get there and it's going to be, like a prison, kind of like how the farm in the first movie is framed. I didn't think it would be like that. That was definitely more interesting. The direction that they took the compound there. And kind of disturbing, to be honest, in a way. Yeah, I don't know. It's it's good. It's going for more. Aardman is really, they're just kind of generally really good when they're allowed to do their own thing. Like, they never really fuck up. Like, let me look at the actual Aardman pictures. Or is Aardman Animations? Yeah, like what are their actual movies? Wallace and Gromit, Flushed Away, Arthur Christmas. I actually haven't seen Arthur Christmas or Pirates or Early Man, or the first Shaun the Sheep movie. But from what I've seen from them, and especially with their shorts and all that, excuse me. I don't know. They're just kind of generally pretty good. The weakest of those that I've seen is easily Flushed Away, but it's not even a bad movie. It's just like a meh. They generally do like a pretty good job with every concept that they go for, and this movie just kind of is more ambitious, and they still manage to, I think, stick the landing. So I would actually definitely recommend it if you liked the original Chicken Run. If you have like young like kids or something, like the movie, it's actually pretty quality, and it's still the classic Aardman claymation. There's some legit pretty funny jokes in this. I mean, it's Aardman, so they have a lot of their humor is usually pretty on point, but there were some great sight gags that I thought were really funny in that way, where I don't know, you're reminded that you're watching like a kind of British comedy where they'll implement something like, okay, there was like one joke where they're trying to like get into this through this door, and there's like an eye scanner. Obviously they're chickens, so what they do is they take like a camera and they put it on a measuring tape, and they shoot it all the way up to like eye level of this guard, and they snap a picture of his eye and like bewilder him. They like flashbang him with this camera, and then they take the photo and they hold it up to the little retinal scanner. But it's not like a machine. It's not like a computer that recognizes the eye or anything. You cut to the other side of the doorway, and there's like a secretary sitting at a desk, and she sees the picture that comes up, and then she has to pull out. She like clicks a lever, and like 10 magnifying glasses pop up to magnify the image of the iris, or of the eye. And then she pulls out a book that just has like a picture of every single guard's eye. And she has to like match it to it's like such a stupid, describing it maybe doesn't do the best justice to it, because it's one of those things where like you don't quite get to what's happening until you see her pull out the book, and then you're like, oh my fucking god. It's such like, British joke about British people making a joke about an inefficient system. Classic. That's like their domain, you know. But yeah, it's quality. It's pretty. I would say better than the original. Not that the original's bad, but this, yeah, it just it shoots higher. And I think from front to end, it was good. I thought it was really good. Which finally lands me on the final topic. So, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, when we had a bit of a did I mention that before? I went over to Kat and I. We went and we had an early Christmas, a Friendsmas as it's called, with some of her friends. And we went over to one of their houses, and just had a small little get together and exchanged gifts and stuff. And we watched. We were like, oh, let's put something on. What do you guys want to watch? And we put on Norbit, the 2006 Eddie Murphy comedy, Norbit. So, sorry, 2007. You look at the poster for this thing, and it looks awful. It looks dreadful. I didn't really know what Norbit was about. I've heard of this film, and just it looks like shit. Like, it looks like dog shit. So Norbit, okay, a lot of people will say this as hyperbole because it's funny to say this. It's funny to describe something in this way. I mean this with complete sincerity, and I'm very serious about this. I think Norbit is a contender for one of the worst movies ever made. Like, it is. I'm almost, I'm never at a loss for words for anything, right? I'm finding it really difficult to even describe how bad it is. How front to back 100% bad it is. There's one good thing in this movie, and it's Terry Crews. He's a delight, as he is in pretty much everything. So what is Norbit about? Well, it's difficult to describe the plot of Norbit because it is very, I would say very, like, amateurish. The script is very amateur in the way that it's constructed. I would describe it as feeling almost like a sequence of SNL skits in a very bad way. So, like, you've got, like, Adam Sandler Waterboy, where he was able to take, I think that was a character he played on SNL first, I believe, where he was able to take this character and turn the concept into a movie, but, like, there was, like, adjustments made because a 5, 6, 7 minute sketch on a comedy show is very different from an hour and a half movie. So, what is Waterboy's goals? What are his motivations? What can happen to him to change the status quo of his life and create conflict, perhaps? Norbit has this kind of aimlessness to it that makes it difficult to describe what actually happens, because there are conflicts and there are plot lines and there are characters. There are quite a few characters, but it never feels cohesive at any point. And I remember being like 20 minutes into the movie and just like asking, like, what the fuck is this movie about? In very simple terms, Norbit is about a man named Norbit, played by Eddie Murphy, who is married to a woman named Rasputia, also played by Eddie Murphy in a big fat suit and makeup. And, oh fuck, like, this is where you start running into problems. And, Rasputia is like this horrible bowl of a woman. And she's, like, abusive. She's a fucking nightmare. And she basically just tosses Norbit around like a I don't know, something that gets tossed around like a football. Fuck it. Norbit is unhappy in his relationship, but is basically so absolutely helpless. Okay, here's every single scene of Norbit. Norbit walks into the scene. Respucia says, and Norbit goes, and it's that for like fucking 90 minutes, 102 minutes, a fucking 100 minutes. That's like every fucking scene. It is. Norbit has almost no character. I don't know what he wants. I don't know who he is besides timid, I guess. He's a loser. He's a loser with like almost okay. He's such an empty, hollow character on this very basic level, in the sense it feels like Norbit does not have an internal dialogue. Do you know what I mean? I remember watching this video about one of the first Oswald the Lucky Rabbit cartoons, and they pointed out how Oswald's thing was that in times of conflict, he would start pacing around and thinking. That was like his little thing that he would do. And that was very important at the time for cartoons, because it showed that Oswald was a character who had thoughts, and he wasn't just kind of like Mickey Mouse was a character who was essentially like would be almost like puppeteered for the purposes of doing whatever the animators and storytellers wanted him to be doing. Oswald was a character who reacted to his environment. He thought about things. He thinks about things, and he has some kind of internal logic, right? Norbit is like the former. He has absolutely nothing going on besides the whole movie, the entire movie. Basically, Respucia has these three brothers who are kind of fun. I mean, one of them's Terry Crews, like, and they do these. They are like into this kind of seedy mafia style protection rackets and stuff like that, and they are trying. Excuse me. They are trying to get the rights to the orphanage where Norbit grew up, and so that they can convert it into a titty bar called Nippleopolis. And they're going to do this by tricking the god damn it, dude, it's so hard to describe. They're going to do this by tricking, okay, there's this girl named Kate who was a childhood friend of Norbit's. And it's really weird because when they're kids, like the actress, when she's an adult, it looks nothing like the girl they got to play the child version of her. Like she's significantly lighter than the child actor. She looks nothing like her. And Kate is going to marry this guy who he had this name that was like Thandie Newton. No, that's the actress who plays Kate Thomas. What the fuck is his name? Oh my god, what is her fiance's name? Those are the brothers. His name is Dion Hughes. Dude, played by Cuba Gooding Jr. Cuba Gooding plays her fiance, Dion Hughes. Dude, a guy named Dion Hughes, dude, cut your losses. It's fucking over. A guy named Norbit Albert Rice. Did I mention that? Oh, okay, hang on. That's for another thing. Kate wants to buy the orphanage to take it over from Norbit's. Oh god, we have to talk about it now. Fuck, I just said I didn't want to talk about it. Take it over from Norbit's adoptive Chinese father, Mr. Wong, who is also played by Eddie Murphy in Yellowface. there are so many scenes of Eddie Murphy pretending to be a Chinese man in a script that he wrote, doing an accent. And dude, it is, oh my, dude, it is fucking weird. It is so weird. It is so fucking weird. This movie's relationship with race. Okay. There's, I'm a very white guy, right? Far be it from me to claim to know what a group of people is or should be offended by. That, I don't know, man. But dude, there's some times where I just see something and I think, oh dude, oh man, this can't be good, right? Like this can't, right? And there's like this, like, it was so obvious to me. Respucia is this, like, oh my, dude, I can't even fucking describe how weird it is. She's frequently described as a gorilla. Most of the jokes in this movie are fat jokes about Respucia. It is horribly mean-spirited. As this big, she's always referred to as being this big, ugly gorilla. And she's this, like, big old dark-skinned black woman who talks like this. Remember, in a script written and performed by Eddie Murphy. And then Kate walks in, and she's a slim, light-skinned black lady with straight hair, and I'm like, oh, there's some cultural shit. You know what? You ever see some cultural shit that you're not a part of, and you're like, damn, you guys are gonna deal with that over there. I'm fucking, that's your problem. This ugly, dark woman, and this beautiful, light-skinned woman. Oh, you can feel it. You can feel all these this weird cultural shit seeping through this film. All the fat jokes and like, it feels, it's like a movie that was made to be, it's like an experiment by the Nazis to make the most tasteless film of all time. You notice how I haven't, like, described the plot very much? Because it's okay. It's just a series of fucking things happening. It's like, now there's the movie has absolutely no momentum from one thing into the next. It's like, here's Norbit growing up. Here's Norbit meeting Respucia. Here's Norbit getting married to Respucia. Here's Norbit and Respucia, and they're going to have like 5 scenes in a row where the only jokes that are there's a jokes constantly, and every single joke is just about how fat she is. Here's a scene of, like, so much of it just blurs, and him with the brothers, and then just, like, total fucking nonsense. It reminds me a lot of Trapped in the Closet by R. Kelly. If you don't know, R. Kelly made this, it's called a hip opera. It's like like rock operas like Coed in Cambria or something like that. Or who had one? There's another one. Did Kiss have a rock opera? Some band like that. I don't know. The R. Kelly did one of those, and it really feels like he looked at like a Tyler Perry produced drama that would be on like the Oprah Winfrey Network, and he said, "You know what? I think I can do that while I'm pissing." And it's such a weird experience. It's hilarious. It's horrible. It is really fucking bad, but in a funny way. And one of the things that's really curious about it is that you get the sense that R. Kelly does not know how to write a story in long form. Because every single track, it's not like when you go listen to something like the only real rock opera, or like, concept album kind of thing that I'm really familiar with, or that I'm most familiar with, would be the Proto Man, the Mega Man rock opera thing. And I think that those albums are great, the two that exist. Fucking when's the next one coming out? It's been like 10 years. I think that, Act 1, I think is really good in the sense that, like, you can listen to that album front to back, and there are, like, liner notes that give you a little bit of info about, the song, like a little bit of context for what's happening, but you really don't need it. You can listen to that album front to back, and you get absolutely you know exactly what's going on. You know who the characters are. You get, a good enough idea of what kind of a world it takes place in. The conflicts that arise, and every song is like, here is, the what kind of emotion. It feels like this is a section of a story where we're going to focus on, here's setting the stage for what's going on. Now we're going to focus in on this conflict that happens between Mega Man and Dr. Light, and this conversation that they have. Now we're going to go to Mega Man getting the resolve to go out on his own. Now we're going to have this scene of him battling these robots. Now we're going to have him being confronted by Proto Man. And Proto Man's going to have this song where he's going to talk. And, like, every single track is, like, leads into the next one in a very logical way where you can totally follow the story, and musically they differ in the sense that, I don't know, they fit the tone and the emotion that part of the story is supposed to convey. The kind of pacing that it's supposed to convey. A slower song for a more thoughtful part of the story. Something like that. R. Kelly basically writes the exact same song but changes the lyrics every single time, and it leads to this weird thing where it's like it just hits you in waves, where the movie, or whatever I guess you'd call it a movie, kind of, because there's a live action companion piece, like it's set to the soundtrack, where I think a lot of the characters are singing, or I don't know. I think R. Kelly does all the actual performance. But it's like every single, it's the same pattern of starting slow and then building up to some crazy climax and then cliffhanger, because that's the only way R. Kelly knows how to write a story. The only way he knows how to write is in the format of a 3.5 to 4 minute song. So the entire movie is in the format of a bunch of 3.5 to 4 minute songs mashed together with the exact same emotional arc every single time. It feels like Eddie Murphy in fucking Norbit basically took a bunch of, like, premises. Now, Norbit's trying to get in the car with his wife, but her fucking big old giant tits are too big because she's so fat and she can't fit into the car. And it goes on for what feels like an hour. Now they're going to the water park, and dude, oh my god, that water park scene is it's so insane. I think we counted, and there's like 10 jokes. There's 10 fat jokes in the span of like 7 seconds. It's actually absurd. There's like a joke every 3 seconds. It's an interesting movie in some sense, because on a technical level, it's fairly competent, right? I wouldn't say there's anything that wrong with it in terms of direction or editing or score. It's literally just that the fucking writing it's one of the worst scripts ever produced. It's the only thing that's interesting about it, if it wasn't trying to be a comedy and failing miserably in such a, like, horrifying, like, that's the only way that it becomes entertaining, is it becomes horrifying at how absolutely tasteless it is. You're watching Eddie Murphy dressed in yellowface saying, "Oh, I'm Asian. I hate the blacks and the Jews. I'm Chinese and I hate the blacks. Oh, ho, 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 ancient Chinese." Dude, it's worse than Lo Wang. It is way worse than Lo Wang. And it's just that kind of shit constantly, where I'm in disbelief at how low, like, it keeps getting lower. such a, yeah, just a complete piece of shit. Oh, I'm Norbin out. Like, literally nothing redeeming about it in any earnest sense. The only way it can be enjoyed is, like, ironically. There is no way to enjoy it honestly. It is like, so fucking offensively bad. From minute, it drags. Like, the thing with the pacing, this is as long, it's 100 minutes, right? It feels like 2 hours because the plot has no momentum. A scene will end and then you'll just be doing something else. And, you know, there's a plot line that progresses, kind of, you know, more so by like the last third, I guess. But God, it just keeps going and going and going. You feel the runtime so much. None of the jokes are good. It's dreadful, and I'm kind of shocked that Eddie Murphy's career survived. Let's see. Critical response. Coming off his Oscar-nominated performance in Dreamgirls, the talented but inconsistent Eddie Murphy plays 3 roles in Norbit. A cruel, crass, stereotype-filled comedy that's more depressing than funny. That's pretty good. A pretty good way to put it. Let's see. Let's look at some IMDb trivia. He wrote it with his brother Charlie Murphy. That's crazy. Thandie Newton followed a strict diet during filming the script. During filming, the script described Kate as much thinner than a common girl. This is also to make Rasputia look heavier. There's all sorts of weird, there's all sorts of weird shit going on, right? Like, I don't know if that's true, but if that is, that's kind of crazy. They told her to, like, thin up to make her more beautiful and to make the Rasputia character, who was played by Eddie Murphy in a fat suit, look fatter. That's kind of shocking. That's a lot to chew on. Okay. This is the first movie in 12 years that Eddie Murphy has written a story. Oh. Yeah. He did not. I think he hadn't written a movie in 12 years. I guess that plays into my idea of this being a very amateur feeling production. To make Rasputia's voice, Eddie Murphy placed ice cubes in his throat. Huh. Eddie Murphy took inspiration in writing the movie from watching online home movies where larger African American women would beat up on their considerably smaller husbands, which Murphy would find amusing. Again, there's like a lot of weird shit going on here, right? According to Thandie Newton, the movie was originally going to be darker. The first draft Newton read involved Rasputia abusing Norbit to a much heavier extent than in the final movie. Again, there's like some weird shit going on here, right? What the fuck, Eddie Murphy? Yeah. Wait, what? Eddie Murphy was hardly ever on set. He has the best stand-ins you've ever seen. Wow. That's kind of interesting. There is kind of a... because he's got this horrible-looking afro. You kind of get... I kind of figure... I was like, is that really him? Or is he just... because his face is not on screen for so much of the movie. Yeah. This was the final collaboration between Eddie Murphy and makeup effects legend Rick Baker. Murphy's difficult behavior on set, which consisted of lashing out at Baker and his crew, refusing to wear many of the bodysuits, what's the premise of the movie, or to come out of his trailer, resulted in the two having a falling out. Huh. Damn. The ending of this movie is the craziest thing I've ever seen, and I think you should watch it just for that. Norbit, I think, is worth watching, if only because it really gives you a sense of how low culture can go. I think it's a low point. And for that reason, it becomes an important cultural artifact. In 100 years, we'll be talking about Norbit and what it meant for society. And how it was the butterfly flapping its wings that led to the nuclear holocaust on the other side of the planet. In any event, I'm done talking. Thank you so much for listening, if you've been listening this far. If you have a question, feel free to leave it down in the comments below, but please phrase it in the form of a question, because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. Check out the main channel and the clips channel and the whatever the fuck. Bye.